That's Sparky.
And Salty.
Haven't listened to this guy in a while. Haven't been on Blackfire in like a month.
Yeah.
This is Behemoth at the left hand.
Oh, I was going to say right. The left hand of God.
The left hand of God. So this should be interesting. Very interesting.
Okay.
What was the last Behemoth song we listened to? I think it was Aura Pro Nobis, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Or was it the, no, it was that song that got banned in Poland. When we tried to...
Oh.
You know what song I'm talking about?
Yeah. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, I remember the whole debacle with it being banned everywhere.
Yeah. And we were trying to release it and re-release it. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
This is, what is it? At the left hand of God?
Right hand. Left hand. It's so hard to think left because everybody always talks about being at the right hand. So yeah, I guess it would make sense.
Everybody doesn't always talk about it.
I guess it would be the opposite.
Alright, let's do it.
Okay. Go. Some people can really beat on that drum. Sounded like a tribal sort of one of those big drums, you know, at the end there. All right.
Golly.
What?
Yeah, we hadn't listened to them in a while.
I know.
We hadn't listened to any black or blackened.
Yeah.
Actually, metal in a while, so it's always. So the right hand of God metaphor is it's a place. It's the place of strength, right? Like you say, like so and so is my right hand man because like historically most of us have been right-handed over against left-handed. So to be at the right hand of a king when you're sitting down is like you're the strongest, you know, person that king has. You act on behalf.
Yeah.
You basically act as a vice regent for the king. And so Jesus, you know, being pictured as sitting at the right hand of God the Father is like Jesus is God's like strength in the world. He's like in the Old Testament, you know, it's like there's a passage in Isaiah where it basically says God looked basically all over the world for an ally and there was no one, but then his righteous right arm worked salvation for him. So that's, you know, there's nobody worthy of saving the world, basically. God looked throughout all humanity, couldn't find anybody. And then Jesus is basically God's righteous right arm. He goes and does the work of salvation in the world.
Yeah.
So the left hand of God is... the irony, of course, is like you're trying to be the opposite.
Yeah.
But the left hand is
position yourself right there
in the place of weakness, right? Because the right hand is the place of strength.
Yeah.
So the left hand would be the place of weakness.
Oh, see, I was looking at it as
the left hand is usually weaker than the right hand.
yes, but you're still right there by God.
Yeah, I just think it's a play on the right hand of
Yeah,
God, which
I
is
agree.
Jesus. So the left hand of God would be the Antichrist or whatever. But that just proves that evil is weaker than good.
Right.
You know.
True.
It's one of those things. It's like I don't think we thought that through when we were, you know, there's like the left-hand path or whatever.
Yes.
I guess it's I'm sure it just means like the opposite of good. I'm sure we're not using the strength metaphor. You're using right as in good and left as in bad.
Okay.
I'm just being a jerk. But it is funny.
Like
because,
Unhallowed when we did that.
Yeah, well, but I do think it's important to it's sort of a self-stultifying phrase, but it's very deep.
Why?
To say that you're on the left hand of God, you know, and then you know because it appears, and in this song like there is a lot of like.
Well, yeah. The thing that's confusing to me is whoever's sitting on the throne has the most power. So why are you saying that you're at the left hand of that? Wouldn't you want to be the one that's on the throne wouldn't you want to say you set God at your left hand or something?
Yeah, that's a good point. It depends on who you're calling God too, right? Like, if the devil's his God and he's at the left hand, you know, it's a way of saying it's a complete inversion.
Yeah.
You know? Of course, they've got a song called Rome 64 CE. That's very interesting.
That is interesting.
That would be around the time of Paul and Peter, where Nero was tearing shit up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like, I think it's a very interesting title because, and even the concept, because on the one hand it's like the inversion of good and it's evil, but on the other hand it's like just it's much weaker than good, you know, in the metaphor, which I don't think they intend to do that, but I am definitely going to ride that and say, ha!
Oh my god.
If you're on the left-hand path, you're on the weak path, man.
They're gonna say, you're overthinking this.
Yeah, they're gonna say. That's what they always say.
Yeah.
They always go, anytime they get caught in one of these situations where it's like, fuck, they always go, you're just overthinking it and dumb and stupid and, and ignorant, idiot, dumb butt. That's usually what they do. Okay. Oh, serpent and lion, I invoke thee.
I like his voice when he's...
See, now, go ahead.
It again, it has that sort of...
What?
Desperate-y a little bit of sound, but not desperate as in the other sounds, but like this... Like, I like that.
Well, his vocals were different on this one than on the other ones that we... I like his vocals on the other one, actually. More than this. This is 2007, so this is almost like 11 years ago.
Oh.
God almighty, time is flying. Okay, so he invokes the devil.
Yeah, into the shrine called life, so into his life.
Uh-huh.
By the 7 wonders.
By myriad mortals that are gone and are to come. Uh-huh. Outside the desert of restriction.
An actor.
Was it Azazel was the name of the scapegoat?
Yes.
So Azazel, they had this ritual in the Old Testament, the people of Israel. They would take a goat. One of the goats, they would kill him as a sacrifice.
For the sins of the people.
Right, for the sins of the people. And then Azazel, the congregation would put their hands on the head of this goat and then send him off into the wilderness, into the desert, outside of the camp.
Right.
And that was symbolic of, because sin does both of those things. It kills, so one of the goats got killed and he got sacrificed. And then the Azazel goat got, basically,
ostracized.
all the people put their sin on this goat and then they sent him out into the desert by himself.
Right. Then he's alone out there. And he's inevitably probably going to die because he's in the wilderness by himself, a little goat. So.
Well, yeah.
It's just going to be a longer...
Yeah, and I was surprised that he didn't name Azazel here.
Maybe he didn't know that.
He's obviously Samael. He invokes Samael later on.
Uh-huh.
And Samael is another one of those intertestamental characters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's one of
Am I familiar with that one? I don't remember that.
Most of the time we talked about Azazel.
Yeah, I just remember talking about that one. Okay.
Remember the angels when they made the deal on Mount Hermon to come down? And
yes.
Yeah. So Azazel was in that crew. Samael was in that crew.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so it's it was that must have been a pretty heavy ritual.
Yeah.
You know, I remember talking about that one time and like years ago, and there was like a huge reaction because you were just thinking through the implications of what that means on a spiritual level.
Yep. I wonder too if you would hear, I don't know anything about goats, but if they're used to being with everybody else and now they're suddenly sent outside the camp alone, like would you hear him all through the night?
Right.
Till an animal got him or something? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because that would, that's what our sin does, is it puts us outside into a place that's not safe, and then,
But it says outside the desert of restriction, an act of rebellion.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
Like basically he's looking at the being outside the camp and being thrust into the desert as like an act of freedom or an act of rebellion. See, outside, desert of restriction, an act of rebellion. So he's looking at it as, hey, you're outside of the camp, you're also outside of the restrictions of the camp. So now you get to do whatever you want. There's this big giant act of rebellion. He's not looking at it as a tragedy. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
So that's really interesting, is you kind of have to choose in any given society, if you're going to play by the given rules of that society,
Yeah.
or if you're going to go out and do, a desert, which is interesting because Jesus also went out into the desert.
Yes, he did.
Like before he went off and did his
Yep.
like full public ministry, he basically gets baptized and then he gets thrown into. Actually, it says the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
The Greek word
Drove
is
him,
basically
right?
like drove him, like shoved
Forced
him
him.
into the desert. Yeah. And that's where he comes into conflict with the devil. And what's
Yep.
interesting is that the devil is trying to get him to throw off all the restrictions that God put on him.
Yes.
So like he was supposed to be fasting, the devil tries to make him eat. He was only supposed to use his powers when God told him to. The devil tried to make him do that. Obviously, you're not supposed to worship the devil. The devil tried to make him do that.
Yep.
So it's interesting, like he's pushed off into this area where there are no witnesses and there's supposed to be no restriction.
That's interesting, huh?
Yeah. And in intertestamental Judaism, they thought that the desert or the wilderness was the habitation of demons.
Yeah.
And even Jesus confirmed that to some degree when he says when the spirit is cast out, he goes to waterless places. Which,
Well, and that demon said, "Don't send us to the
to the pig, the abyss.
abyss."
Yeah.
Is that different?
The abyss is a dimension where they get punished.
Oh, okay.
But the Jews, the intertestamental Jews at the time thought that the desert, the wilderness, is where they
Yeah.
demons inhabited everything, which is interesting. On the sea of motion, stability of matter by serenity, strength, and beauty by the mighty chant of every breath. See, these guys are a little bit different than Vatain, because Vatain was like basically, isn't it like chaos Gnosticism or something?
Yeah.
So here he's
Serenity,
saying
strength, beauty.
stability of matter.
Yeah.
In the sea of motion and the stability of matter. That's like the whole order and chaos thing that Jordan
So-
Peterson talks about.
Is he saying by the mighty chant over every breath, like what they're chanting is what's bringing that order?
Well, he's saying all of it. Being
Or-
outside in the desert, being unrestricted, having the motion like the sea and the stability of matter, all of those things he's combining to invoke the devil.
Wait, I don't know if we're saying the same thing. Are we saying, okay, when he says I invoke thee, he's calling Satan and he's saying I invoke thee, he's calling him there. But at the end over here he's saying by the mighty chant of every breath. You know, whenever you see anything where they're trying to invoke the devil or demons, it's always chanting, you know what I mean? Like, or from what I've seen.
Yeah.
So he's doing that and he's saying, an act of rebellion on the sea of motion, stability of it. Is he saying that when Satan shows up, he brings these things, strength, beauty, serenity, stability?
He's saying, I invoke thee by the seven wonders, by the myriad mortals that are gone and are to come, outside the desert of restriction, and act that these are all, like, all of what we just reviewed is
The
goes
reason
into
why he can invoke him?
right, the goes into the chant. Like, he's chanting for that reason. He wants all that other stuff.
He wants those things.
Yeah.
When they say I invoke you by, is that like the reason that I can call on you to come is because of this? Like,
Yeah, it's very close to saying in Jesus' name.
that's what I was wondering.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's talking about
Well-
all the people that went before us, all the seven wonders of the world, the concept
But
of
how
rebellion.
does that give him the reason to be able to invoke the devil? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, because all those things are what he's about. In his mind, anyway. The devil's about being outside, living without
Seven
restriction.
wonders?
The seven wonders of the world, yeah.
Yeah. How does that have anything to do with the devil?
Those are pinnacles of human achievement.
Oh, interesting. Smart guy. Smart man for you.
Cool.
Both of you, him for coming up with it and you for interpreting it.
It's Serpentine Dance of Blood Cells. Now that's interesting because he had like leukemia or something.
That's right.
So I don't know if I don't know if he knew that he had leukemia at this point. But in the Serpentine Dance of Blood Cells and the simplicity of spells, divine names, metagames, I greet thy presence.
What is metagames?
Well, a meta narrative is a story where the characters realize that they're in a story. So a meta game might be a game where
You realize
that you're in a game.
You friggin' realize you're in the maze.
Right?
Yep.
Which a lot of people feel that way with God. They feel like, he's a divine chess player in the sky and all this jazz.
Yeah.
And so Satan shows up and says, You guys are in a game.
Right. So recognize it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, of course, the characters in the game recognize they're in a game, and then they what are you supposed to do with that? Because how do you know that that's not just another move by the chess player? But I could definitely see how, if you look at the Book of Job, it looks like a divine chess match.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And he doesn't really.
It does look like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, snake.
Well, I think it's because we don't recognize the reason for why it's happening. It just seems like, because I've been reading that book, again, Hind's Feet in High Places with the kids, and, we're at the part in the book where the character is being asked to go, through the desert places, and she's like, you were supposed to be bringing me the heights of the mountains. Why are we going away from the mountains into the desert? And then the shepherd ends up telling her that it's because, he's brought all of his people all before that through these difficult times, because those times is what brings her is going to bring her forth as gold, or is going to create in her to be the best of who she can be as far as imaging God or whatever. So I don't even know where I was going with that. I got distracted.
Like the game?
Yeah. So you could look at it as, okay, this is a game, or you could look at it as okay, every move that gets made, it's not because God is playing this game, but it's because God is bringing about what's best for me. And you know what I mean? Even though it doesn't seem because we can't see the whole thing, we can't see the full picture.
Well, I think people, this concept of freedom, especially in the Western world, this concept of freedom is this idea that everybody's kind of locked into, and anything that compromises the idea that we're making all of these decisions informed only by us is an ideal that Westerners love having that isn't real. And then the minute you contest that from a divine perspective, it engenders a lot of resentment towards God, because it's because Westerners really believe that, there are some people in the Western world that really believe that they are where they are just purely because of their effort and volition.
Yeah, right.
So, God's
I'm not sure
kind
we
of...
can come to that without looking at history.
Yeah. This is interesting. Oh, snake, thou art God, coiled underneath
that part confused me.
Coiled underneath my throne.
Okay, so... Oh, I was like...
See, this is one of the differences between them and Vatane. I don't think
they would say that either.
But I think that he's looking at the devil as a concept to, create a superhuman, it's basically if you follow the principles of Satanism, you rule yourself. You wouldn't have Satan rule you if you look at it as a principle, because Satan, I think in his mind, Satan is an archetype of rebellion and self-will and self-exaltation. So then the highest form of Satanism would be to be, you're on the throne and Satan is underneath your throne, empowering you with the principles of, self-rule and self-governance.
Yeah.
You can pause that. Yeah. So that's an interesting line. What was your take on it?
Well, I just thought that was weird, because he's saying, oh, snake, thou art God, so he's exalting him, and then he friggin' says, coiled underneath my throne. I just thought that was bizarre, because I'm like...
But that was the same idea, right?
But unless
Lucifer.
he's saying that... I mean, I don't know if you can see the snake coiled underneath the throne, or if he's saying, you're the power behind what I'm doing, and I'm exalting you. I'm in the front, but it's really you that's empowering me.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, the Lucifer, he saw... divine being, and he wasn't satisfied. He wanted to be on God's throne.
Oh, yeah.
So the principle would be, I could recognize that you're God, but I'm still going to be on the throne, because that's the ultimate form of following his example.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's the pattern that's been set up, right? Like, so okay, if you're God, but I'm going to rebel against you being God, and I'll be God,
Right.
because rebellion is exalted in that form of thinking.
Right.
You know, at the beginning of the song there. So
With blood we make this covenant, myself I redefine. That is interesting.
but why? What do you get out of it?
Well, because, I mean, in Christianity, those are two major concepts.
Oh yes.
Being redefined or born again and that blood for the covenant. Mm-hmm. Those are both major concepts in Christianity.
Yeah.
Because, you know, even all the way back to Abraham, you know, when God makes a covenant, it becomes a very bloody experience. Mm-hmm. Of course, in the Old Testament, it was bloody because the people of the ancient Near East basically said, look, you know, if I don't follow through in my end of the bargain, then the blood that you're seeing, you know, leaking out of this animal will happen to me.
Yeah.
Like, that's how serious they were about covenants back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, we say things like contracts and things like that, but the contract doesn't really come close to an understanding of what a covenant is, because, like, with a contract, it's like everybody's got in the back of their head, oh, I'll just get a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I've got a lawyer that can, like, go over the contract and find the loopholes and all the rest of it. But covenants in the ancient Near East were very serious affairs, you know, and it was like that blood was there that they would kill an animal and they'd both look at it and say, okay, this is what will happen to me if I don't follow through on the bargain.
Oh, wow.
And so my theory, whatever you want to, is God kind of looked down and said, okay, that's a practice they're familiar with. I'll go down there and work with that. So then covenant becomes this giant theme because it fits very nicely. Because when you make a covenant with God and...
Or if it's the game theme, then he sets that up before because he knows he's coming after with that.
Sure, I mean, he knew that we were going to, you know, create that concept. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, people don't realize. They're like, oh, why... Christianity is a very bloody religion. Well, it's an ancient Near Eastern document.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're going to see. But that's what I love about Jordan Peterson. Like, he doesn't believe this stuff, but he sees the psychological value in it.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, we would say you're not far from the kingdom. Mm-hmm. But there is something very significant about the concept that you're going to keep your word even if it costs you the shedding of your own blood.
Yeah.
Like, that's an important concept. So, with blood we make this covenant. Of course, when God makes a covenant with Abraham, and you're supposed to split these animals in two.
Yeah.
And walk through them and basically say, this is what's going to happen to me if I don't fulfill my part of the covenant. Mm-hmm. And God walks through, but Abraham doesn't. He doesn't have Abraham walk through. And I think there's a lesson there, right? Which is, you know, God knows that Abraham won't be able to fulfill his part of the covenant. And so he also knows that he would have to demand blood for that. But he won't have Abraham do it. And he's basically saying, I'm going to bear the penalty of Abraham's inability to fulfill his side of the bargain.
Yep. Which
fits very, very nicely into the concept of Jesus dying on the cross, because we couldn't fulfill our part of the bargain as far as, you know, being faithful to God. So that's a very important term. And then myself I redefine, because once you come into that understanding, then you become born again or redefined in the Christian side of it. Look in and above, there is more than the flesh. Look careful, and thou may see the unextinguished flame. The nectar of thy rage I taste from the cup of fornication, and woman by my side. And scarlet is her skin, she's eager to rise and eager to please. This is what I said, like, in the previous song too, like, he said something about Mary, yeah, he used some derogatory, in my mind, misogynistic terms, in reference to Mary. It's very interesting, like, especially in, like, blackish sort of metal, like, women get referred to in these very interesting terms, and it's okay. Like, well, I don't know how they get away with this stuff, but I guess it's expected in the black metal
Which part
Genre.
are you? Why is her skin scarlet?
Well, because there's a scarlet dragon in Revelation.
Yeah.
Right, Revelation 12. So, and remember the whore of Babylon? She's like dressed in red and purple and all that.
Yep.
So that would make sense.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So inside of him is the unextinguished flame of Satan's rage. You know, like it's more than just the physical, because he says it's more than just the flesh. And then it says if you look inside, you'll see the unextinguished flame of Lucifer's rage. So he's saying that, which, you know, I don't really understand this guy, because on the one hand it's like, it's not real, Satan is just a concept for self-improvement or whatever. He's like a divine Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Or like
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins is like a motivational speaker. He's like 6'4", he's got like a permatan, very white teeth, and he smiles all the time, and like very motivational.
Okay.
But like, so that's like how the devil is. He's just basically like a motivational speaker. Like, come on, you know, don't have any restrictions, you know.
I'll curl up under your throne.
Yeah. But then he's saying that human beings are more than just the flesh. We all have a soul, and that the soul is like full of this rage of the devil because we don't want to be restricted, I suppose, is where he's going. But
That's really interesting.
I taste from the cup of fornication.
Do you ever feel like you're angry beyond what you should be?
No.
You've never felt that?
No, I've always felt like my anger has been commensurate to the situation.
Oh, okay.
I don't get angry a lot, though. You get angry a lot, though. I don't.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the rage, then?
Yeah.
The unextinguished flame.
Well,
of, like,
I just wondered if, like you know, I was talking before, and I was saying, like, I think that some thoughts that we think, they're not coming from us. Like, I feel like that the devil kind of, like, incites us to think certain things or kind of throws stuff at us. So in that sense, you know, like, I think that the devil has, like, this long time going anger toward God. And so sometimes I wonder if part of, like, the reason when we feel angry beyond what we should be, is it because it's coming from some, I don't want to say eternal anger, but you know what I mean? Like, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Ancient anger,
yeah. Ancient anger that we've allowed ourselves to ingest in some way and become part of.
The concept of power seems to be a major theme within Satanism.
Yeah.
And so the most deceptively powerful emotion is anger.
Yes.
I say deceptively powerful because people who are just angry all the time are extremely weak people.
Right.
And
thank you for just telling everybody I'm angry a lot and then following it up with that.
Oh. Are you going to edit that out?
I feel very good about myself.
But anger though is like it's a very deceptive emotion because
it's true.
People look very powerful when they're angry,
Yeah.
but in reality they can very easily be controlled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like that's why.
Oh yeah, like one of our kids, like he'll blow it every time he gets upset. He's on 10. Ah! And like everybody knows it. And like I was downstairs and like I heard the oldest one say something and I said, I think he was antagonizing him. And the youngest one goes, ah! He starts like freaking out.
Oh yeah.
And then our older son said, right on cue. I looked at our youngest son. I said, "Do you see? He set you up, man. He totally set you up."
And I tell him. Yeah. And I tell him, I say, you gotta play chess. You can't play checkers. Like they know that you're weak, and they can.
You know,
they can
there's
get
that
you to
anger
do.
looking like, "Ah," but at the same time,
he looks like he's leveling up.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Turning into a Super Saiyan. In reality, is you're weak as hell.
It's not. Yeah.
You're completely vulnerable.
Yep.
You're completely vulnerable.
And you're vulnerable to thoughts that are not true also, because, you know, like there's so many times where I'll get like angry about something and then I totally missee a whole situation. And then when I like kind of like calm down and then we re-talk through the situation and then I see like, I'm like, how did I get so many facts mixed up? But so for me, I just can't see the situation honestly. Like, whatever.
You have a lot in common with little man.
Yeah, I do. I was when you guys were out playing football, and like he was getting like so sick of running, and like I friggin' hate it when you push me to that level. Like, come on, and I'm like, I'm done. I was done 20 minutes ago, and I'm progressively getting more angry because I don't want to do this anymore. And I know you're like trying to make me stronger and stuff like that. And that's like
that's the one where the one where he lost to his sister, or the other one where I was having him run his lap?
No, it wasn't either one of those. But he's like running up the hill trying to catch the ball, and I can see like his face getting progressively more discouraged
That's the
about
one where he said,
still
"Give
running.
me the damn break." That was the one, right?
I don't think so, but that's the same idea. But I was like,
that's the one he lost to his sister.
I'm cooking on the grill, and I like turn around and I could see his face getting more like he was done with the situation, and he was also getting angry about the situation.
Give me a damn break!
He put his fist. Give me a damn break. He said. I'm like, he shouldn't say damn, but I understand the kid. Anyway, so I understand, you know, like I could see myself when he was running around like that. I was like, oh, I totally know that feeling. I mean, I didn't melt down quite to the degree that he does, but like I feel it.
Another day, another eternity gone on the stairway to salvation. Well, it's interesting when the cup of fornication, and she's eager to rise and eager to please, blah, blah, blah. And it's like...
blah, blah.
It's like, yeah, well, there you are. I think it's hard to be a rock star and not have that perspective of
yeah, it really
honestly,
it really annoys me.
What annoys you?
Those lines.
Oh, I'm sure.
It annoys me. Like, I don't... See, but, I mean, it's weird because, like, I don't have a problem, if a wife wants to be, like, eager to whatever, but the way he worded it makes it sound like, I don't know, she's like...
It's a cup of fornication, man.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? A lot of paganism is very, very... that's actually one of the reasons why I don't...
Okay, wait, let me finish. I think what it bothers me about it is it's one-sided. That's what it is. It's not like they're both eager to please each other, and, like, you know what I mean? It's just, like... I feel like he's just, just being a guy.
Being a guy.
I know, but that's what I'm... Do you want me to be honest or not? You want me to lie?
No, you're being honest.
I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I feel like just... Not like you. You're not like that. But, like, I feel like a lot of guys are.
There's billions of dudes that are not like that.
Yeah, I know, but...
Billions of us.
There are plenty that are like what was just explained. Like,
and
just
there's plenty females.
Men, you know what? You're right. That's
plenty
true.
Of women that are like that, too.
Okay, but I haven't had experiences with women, so... I don't know.
I've had some experiences with women.
And you have, yeah, so you would know.
Yeah, but it is very interesting to me how self-serving to the male inclination, let me put it that way, many pagan religious rituals are. And it's very interesting because and you'll see this in the Old Testament where it's like, don't visit a temple prostitute, don't ever have your daughter become a temple prostitute, ever. Mm-hmm. And there were like strict penalties on temple prostitution because it was a huge part of the ritual was melding sexuality and spirituality, which is very, very convenient for male-dominated societies. Oh, imagine that! You have a temple prostitute as your part of your religious worship, and you never see that.
Sorry, babe, I gotta go worship now.
You never see that in the Old. Well, there's no sorry, babe. You never see that in the Old Testament.
Right.
And I that to me is a major indicator that something is different is happening with the Old Testament because it's an ancient Near Eastern document. You see you have an ancient Near Eastern view of the world with the world being a canopy and all this, but like that shit, you don't see it. There's a consciousness of it, and they go the other way. Yeah,
and it's interesting too because when you think about the Christian religion or even the Jewish mindsets and stuff, there's this whole, people will be like, no, I don't like it if men have like a position of leadership.
Yeah.
It's clearly stated out the male position of leadership within the family or within the not that the man like dominates the woman and like walks all over her. It's not like that. There's positions that everybody has, and but then like it goes away. Man, I feel like I can't speak clearly right now. So like it's clearly stated that men have a different position than women do in our religion or in the Jewish religion.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's not like, so there's other religions where it seems like there's like some freedom within, you know what I mean, men, women, blah, blah, blah. But then there's the temple prostitution
Right.
and stuff like that. So it's like, well, yeah,
Right.
but the whole position of everybody is raised to a degree that's not, do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. Well,
Say it right
a
quick.
lot of people, accuse the OT and the new T of misogyny.
Yeah.
But it's like, your daughter would have a much better time
yeah.
in the camp of Israel than
Yeah.
they would being, especially our daughter, because they're so beautiful. Forget it. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to economics.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's very, very interesting. Very interesting. But, sexual rebellion or sexual, like, freedom, quote unquote, seems to be like a staple of Satanism to some degree. We gotta get, like, a real
Pretty sure I said
hardcore.
that. I'm pretty sure you were like, what? One of the things. I was like, no,
Yeah,
I think
I'll
that.
timestamp it. We can review it. Tis our last fall, touch our mother whore, the harlot of the saints that spits on the rotten cross. Incinerate the icon, the symbol of all loss, at the left hand of God. So this, the mother whore, seems to like. So she's like the antithesis of the Blessed Mother, of the Virgin Mary, right? Like, Mary is a virgin, she's
Yeah.
a mother, this one's a mother whore, the harlot of the saints. Mary is the queen of the saints.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That's
just,
the opposite.
it's very interesting to me, like, so here, I mean, we're not Roman Catholics,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the Roman Catholics have done a very, very good job of exalting Mary.
Right.
Probably too good, well, we would say too good of a job as
Yeah.
Protestants. But again, it's this concept that, we get so much shit for being misogynistic. And in the one sense, you could say that Mary
Yeah.
is a very empowered woman because she is able to, like, reach these heights without being connected to a man per se. Mm-hmm. The only man she's connected to is, like, a divine being, which
Right.
is Jesus.
Right.
So, like, she is sort of this exalted, like, proto-woman,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not. It's not because she goes around and has sex with a lot of people. It's actually the opposite
Right.
in their system. So it's like, okay, you have one alternative where you can have a woman who has value apart from how she relates to men. Mm-hmm. And they actually create, there's a whole genre of being,
Yeah.
a nunnery, right? Where
Yes.
you have these women who find their value in their devotion to God and not men. Mm-hmm. And you can look at that and say, oh, that's antiquated and whatever. Well, what's the alternative? Harlot.
Right.
Which is a woman who's defined by, she's basically, her value is essentially tied into how many men she can,
Right. So it doesn't even have her name. It's just Mother Whore.
So, well, yeah, but of course, like, a lot of times, like, Mary isn't mentioned by name either.
But we
because
know her.
because her title is so,
What?
whatever.
What is she called? Oh, the mother of.
The Blessed Mother, the Queen of the Saints, the Queen
Yes.
of Heaven. She's got millions of
But
names.
she's not defined by.
Our life and our sweetness, our hope.
But this one is only defined by the whoredom. Like, that's the name. Like.
Well, yeah, and I'm not taking it literally because you have the mother of harlots in Revelation,
Yeah.
right? Because the bride is being compared to the whore in
Oh,
Revelation
yep.
and all this, but it's just interesting to me. It's like, okay, you want to leave the Christian underpinnings, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so you want to like invert all of our heroes. So now you're going after the Blessed Mother, but every time you do that, you end up doing something completely destructive. So, like, now it's like the mother, the whore, and all this, and she's a harlot and all this. Like, that's not. You see what I'm saying? Like,
I don't see
if he had a daughter,
Yeah.
and you were to say, Nergal, who would you rather your daughter be, like Mary or a mother whore who's a harlot goes around with? You know what I mean? Like, no dude wants their daughter to have that as a job title.
Right.
So, like, it's a misogynistic alternative. Mm-hmm. Like, it's women in this, there's like 2 or 3 songs here where like women are not very.
Yeah, I know.
You know, so it's a very interesting concept to me, because when you think about sexual freedom, and we talked about this during the Doors thing, like, you know, female sexual energy generally functions to stymie male sexual energy, and when you don't have that in place, then
Yeah.
this is what you have.
Yeah.
And men become the beneficiaries of all this shit. You know, maybe the restrictive aspects of Christianity are there for a reason. Maybe those restrictive aspects of Christianity actually function to protect women.
Right.
In a society
Right.
where they're generally going to be weaker and not have the power.
Right.
You know, and you know, people, you know, maybe, you know, it's like Chesterton said, when you see a barrier, be careful that you know what the hell the barrier is doing before
Right.
you take it down.
Right. No, it's true.
Because it seems to me that women always end up in the short end of the stick anytime we start having discussions about sexual freedom and all this shit. It seems to me that women always end up at the bottom of the barrel in these situations.
No, it's true.
Which, you know, to your point, I think it's unavoidable that men are generally going to dominate a society. I think that's generally unavoidable. So then when you have a male-dominated society, you would much rather have a principle that says, don't even look at a woman with lust in your heart. Which would then function to protect the weaker elements of your society, aka woman, from being devoured by lecherous
Yeah, I
men.
wonder too, like, what would change as far as, because a lot of times a woman will find some of her power, a lot of her power through her sexuality, because that's the most powerful thing she feels like she has. But if you had an environment, you know, like, you always see, like, you know, I'm not sure if they're definitely connected, but I think that they are. You know, like, a lot of times I'll see, like, the different talk show things that you'll be watching and stuff, and the guys are all dressed up in a nice suit, and then the girl has this scooping top, you know, that's really tight and stuff.
Sure.
And it's like, can't your words, the power of your words, be enough? Like, do you have enough of a mind that you believe that your stuff is powerful enough where you don't need to do that? Or does she not even recognize that her body is also on display while why can't she be in a nice, you know what I mean, like, you know, I don't know if they even connected in their own mind, or if they feel more powerful when they're like that. But it would be, you know, we would think it's strange if the guy came with his shirt all,
yeah,
you
if
know, like,
if he came in a tank top or something
yeah,
like that.
we'd be like, well, that's weird. I mean,
What the fuck are you doing?
yeah, that's not very professional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I don't know. I don't know if, you know, part of the reason why, because lust is such a big thing, that is why a woman maybe gets more of a hearing in certain areas and stuff like that. So I don't know if that wasn't there, where would a woman find the locus of her power? If she could not find it in any aspect of her sexuality, like just within herself, you know what I mean? To be a powerful woman.
Yeah.
You know, to see that, I'm talking about, like, not just a few women, but like an entire society of women. What would that society of women look like?
Well, yeah. You know, I think you have to think through the ramifications in any society. If you say, we're going to pull the stops off on all the sexual restraints, who does that benefit? And if you think men and women are exactly the same, you're wrong. That benefits men, point blank, period.
Yeah.
If you have a society that encourages that type of thing, women are literally always going to get the short end of the stick in that situation. If you have a society where you say, okay, there's got to be restrictions within marriage and sexuality, and there's got to be restrictions even in regard to you looking at a woman in a lustful sense, now the woman has a fighting chance of being appreciated for the intelligence that she has, or the heart that and not even necessarily intelligence, her heart, her spirit, her willingness to love other people, help other people, you know, be celebrated for those things. And there's a place for her to be celebrated for her sexuality as well. It's just not the entire culture.
Right. Right.
You know, and so on the one hand, it's like, there's all this freedom that's being promised, but if you apply this shit to a given society, you end up in the current environment that we are right now with Western society and male and female sexuality.
Yeah.
Which is downright fucking toxic. Okay? It is.
Yep.
It is.
Yep.
And so, you know, I think we're gonna move back to a place where we figure out, like, culturally in the Western world, oh, that's why You know what I mean? Like, let's go back there. I really think you're going to start to see a resurgence of that because we're eating the fruits now of all of our sexual freedom. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's an immature person. You're immature in your mind if you think any form of restriction is bad.
Yeah.
You know, that's a childish way of thinking. You know, when you're young and you don't understand why you can't have chocolate cake for breakfast,
lunch and dinner,
or when you're a teenager and you just got a car and you can't understand why there's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit in residential. All these are signs of immaturity. It isn't until you get older, you know, when you realize, oh, that's why you can't have chocolate cake for dinner. Oh, that's why, because people fucking die if you go over the speed limit in a residential area.
Yeah.
Like, so I think collectively we're going to go, oh, that's why we had certain sexual mores in place.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I had a friend one time that said, like, why do we always basically put, when we think of freedom, we always put that with independence. Like, why do we always feel like that they go hand in hand?
Right.
Is it possible that there's freedom outside of independence in the sense of, you know, we pull off all the, we don't have any rules, we don't have any laws, we don't have anything. Are we really free though? Because we're not. We're really not.
Well, the minute you take those laws away, then might becomes right.
Yeah.
Right? Because
exactly.
Because somebody's going to go and fill that vacuum, and somebody's going to be a beneficiary. And I think if you look at Old and New Testament sexual mores, you got to ask yourself the question: who does this benefit? And I think a lot of it is God saying, okay, I know how scummy these guys are, and let me give my daughters a fighting chance in a given culture. That's my thought on it. What do you give the song?
I like the sound of his voice in it. I like those drums at the end. 6.5, I guess.
It's a 6 for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I had
his other ones, I think he did better on the other ones.
Well, yeah, I think the other ones were more recent than this one. So, yeah. So
you had what? What were you gonna say?
Well, I hadn't listened to Behemoth in a while, so I was expecting some, like, I don't know. I don't really know what I was expecting, but anyway, it's a 6 for me. Then out.
Sori out.
Gone.